Bristol. This sleepy port was once a mercantile powerhouse which dominated the transatlantic slave trade. Ships that wrenched millions of Africans from their homes crowded the Avon for a century. Yet a visitor today sees a city stripped of any reminder of that cargo. Bristol has turned its back on the trade that made it rich.
I was simply amazed by the fact that there was no recognition that Bristol's wealth lay in the Atlantic trade. In vain, I went to the museum, for example, to see whether there was a display there. Not a word of it. I looked at my university and saw whether anyone was teaching it. Not a bit of it. I talked to people in the street, and they were completely ignorant of it. And I think that really in the 20th century, Bristol went through a long period of denial, that there really was, as it were, a participation in this wider world.
The city's authorities have long resisted efforts, especially by the black communities, to mark its slave trading past.
There has been a genuine fear in Bristol of what the consequences would be if the truth were known. And part of the fear was generated, I think, was because the people who had the control over whether that history came out or not actually didn't know themselves what the extent and the nature of Bristol's involvement was. And I think it's more fear than denial.
But in early March this year, the first sign of change appeared. Bristol's dignitaries gathered for the opening of a new footbridge. It was a small step, but a victory for the campaign to commemorate one of the slaves who lived in Bristol, a man called Pero Jones.
We are here with our friends to show our respect to our ancestors who lived and died in this city as enslaved Africans. It's often not known that in 1725, Bristol alone enslaved 16,550 Africans in that 1 year.
It's a bridge that helps us come to terms with, to understand, and sometimes to confront a shared past. A past that contains, for many of us, great sadness.
This moment is a sign that Britain is waking up to its slave trading history. Pero Jones belonged to a Bristol family, the Pinneys. Britain's slave past does not start with Africa. It begins in 17th century England with the British Empire's first slaves, white men. The founder of the Pinney dynasty, Azariah, was farming in Dorset when he was swept up in a rebellion against the king.
The Duke of Monmouth landed in Lyme Regis in June 1685, and Azariah, probably tired of haymaking, saw these redcoats crossing the end of the field and thought that looked rather more fun than haymaking, and why don't I go and join them? And off he went. And in July of 1685, he fought the disastrous Battle of Sedgemoor. The Duke of Monmouth was executed, and a very large number of others were executed too. Some were transported, and Azariah, my ancestor, was one of those lucky ones, being sent to the island of Nevis as an indented servant, which meant he was more or less a slave himself.
When Azariah Pinney landed, the island of Nevis was little more than untamed bush. The English convicts were put to work alongside native Indians and a few imported Africans. They cleared the island, first for tobacco, then for a new luxury crop, sugar.
At that time, the West Indies was something like a gold rush. There was this new chance to make quite a lot of money quite quickly, and a lot of people came out from this country to do it. And in fact, they employed Negroes imported from Africa as slaves, and they employed, after the Battle of Sedgemoor, quite a large number of white people who were indented servants like Azar.
Azariah persuaded his sister to buy him out of servitude. Within a year, she had set him up in the sugar business. He quickly saw that convicts and Indians could not survive the harsh conditions, but his own time in the fields had shown him where the answer lay: Africa.
Large numbers of Negroes were shipped from Africa to the West Indies, and the African or the Negro population increased and the white population decreased.
Within 2 generations, his heir, John Pinney, was meticulously recording the purchase of African slaves for his booming plantations, including one he named Pero Jones.
I desire you to take the earliest opportunity of buying me 10 new Negroes. Never let them be younger than 10 years, and never let them be as old as 30 if you can help it. Get them at St. Kitts or any other islands where they may be had best and cheapest.
His grandfather's enslavement probably made John Pinney uneasy about owning slaves, but the scriptures stilled his conscience.
I can assure you I was shocked at the first appearance of human flesh
exposed to sale. But surely God ordained them for the use and benefit of us. Otherwise his divine will would have been made manifest by some particular sign or token.